I can't hear you. You're muted. Sorry.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the April 16th, 2025 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting with Environmental Quality Commission members, city staff, and members of the public. Now I would like to introduce staff and EQC members present. In the room, we have myself, Chair McKenna, Vice Chair Pellegrini-Yopart, Commissioners Headley, Hernandez, Hill, and Meyer. Staff present includes Sustainability Manager Rachel Launder and virtually Management Analyst 2, Liz Tapia. Ms. Launder, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair McKenna. I'd like to start by sharing how to make public comment this evening. We don't actually have public comment cards in the room, so you can just, I found them. Great. So you can grab one when you're ready to make public comment and return it to me here. If you're online, you can press *9 or hit the raise hand button on Zoom, which should be to the right of your name if you're on your mobile device, or at the bottom of your screen if you are using a computer. I will be able to unmute you when you raise your hand, and you'll have up to 3 minutes per item. And I'll return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So under public comment, the public may address the Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. While you are not required to provide your name or city of residence, it is helpful. The Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Sustainability Manager Launder, please call for public comment.
Sure. If you would like to make public comment on an item not on the agenda, you can fill out a public comment card and hand it to me. If you're online, you can hit the raise hand button, and if you're calling in, you can press *9 and I'll be able to unmute you. So we have one card in the room, and I don't see any hands raised online. So we'll start with you, Mr. Schmidt. I'm not going to pull up the clock.
That's fine, it'll be quick. Hello folks, Brian Schmidt from Menlo Spark. I just wanted to bring up 2 items. First, for folks that might like to track electrical issues. I've been watching the Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting from March 27th. They have 2 study session items on how electricity rates are calculated, and the environmental aspects of those are managed. It's very well done, actually. So I'd like to recommend that for anyone who wants to track that. Maybe those commission members who run their own substacks on electricity don't need this. The rest might find it helpful. And I suspect other folks might raise this as well, or maybe Rachel will, but a week from Saturday is the Love Earth Festival. So big deal, and I hope commissioners and their families and their whole extended social network will be able to attend.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you. And without any other public comment, I'll return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay, we will move on to regular business. Item D1, approve the March 19th, 2025 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. Are there any clarifying questions from EQC before we take public comment? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Launder, do we have any public comment on this item?
Sure, I'll open up public comment for item D1, approve the March 19th minutes. If there's any public comment in the room, you can return a card to me. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button or *9 and I'll be able to unmute you. And I am not seeing any hands raised online or cards in the room, so we can close public comment and return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay, is there any discussion amongst the commission or a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Great. Ms. Launder, can you please state the motion?
Yes, we have a motion by Commissioner Headley and a second by Vice Chair Pellegrini-Yopart to approve the March 19th, 2025 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. And we can vote on that. So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes with 6 in favor and 1 absent. Okay, return the meeting to you.
Thank you. We will move on to item D2, discuss climate action plan progress report. Staff will be making the presentation and the EQC will be able to provide feedback.
Awesome. I'm going to share some slides here. Okay. So annually, we have the opportunity to look at our climate action plan progress and present it to the Environmental Quality Commission and then the City Council. And it's a good time, I think, to not only reflect back on some of the successes from the past year and think about some of the opportunities and challenges moving forward. But it also is a great time to like dig into the data and understand what data we have access to and what data we might like to see. And so I split this conversation up into two pieces, thinking that it would be kind of a hearty discussion. And we could spend today talking about CAP strategies 1, 2, and 3, as well as providing some background on the climate action plan. And then in our next meeting, we can talk about strategies 4, 5, and 6. So I'll start with some background and share more about our inventory. We'll get into the actions or strategies for part 1 and then 2 and 3. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity for discussion. And so this one's not an action item, but there are some discussion questions that I would like EQC's feedback on and reaction to, I guess, as kind of like this kind of training before going to council with this item. And so some of the things I'm looking for from this group is, you know, what data is missing or what data would you like to see? And that's something I can explore getting and understanding. I'm curious to what of these actions and strategies are of highest priority. I'll be presenting kind of our short-term actions that we'll be looking at for the next year. I'd also be curious to know if there's anything else you'd like council specifically to know relative to these topics, like there's something I can include in the narrative of the staff report about, you know, the EQC's interest or direction around these topics. So those are some discussion questions to frame the presentation, and I can share them again at the end. So climate action has been a top city council priority since 2020, which is exciting. And we all know it's maintained its priority status in the last goal setting workshop. In July 2020, the city adopted the 2030 climate action plan with a goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. And that means reducing our emissions from fossil fuels as much as possible and then offsetting the remaining emissions. As I mentioned, annually, staff provides City Council a progress report on our CAP implementation. And the last one was presented to City Council on August 13th. And it was followed by City Council adopting a resolution to amend the 2030 Climate Action Plan to include an implementation scope of work, which is just a fancy way of saying an updated list of actions for the city to take between 2025 and 2030. And that was a very extensive process for the EQC in 2023 and in 2024, updating that scope of work. EQC provided recommendations for each of the CAP strategies. There were subcommittees would do a report out and staff would take that feedback back into the report, which is a really interesting model. I'm not sure of any other cities who have such involvement from the technical commission in that way. And then, as I mentioned, the CAP progress report was brought to City Council, followed by the scope of work adoption. And since then, we've been working on implementation and are looking forward to reporting out in August of this year. So like all cities in San Mateo County, 2005 is our baseline year for greenhouse gas emissions. We use the ICLEI framework for quantifying our emission inventories, and we have support from the county's sustainability department to help us compile our inventories. And so I may seem like the technical expert here, but really there's a team of data scientists and climate scientists behind me. So I probably don't have all the answers to the questions tonight. Just a sidebar there. And as you'll see, since 2005, we've reduced our emissions by 27%. And you'll see the highest category, well, the highest meaningful category was from building energy, which we know is from the formation of Peninsula Clean Energy, which is providing electricity to all Menlo Park customers and has saved customers $13.8 million since they started in 2016, and that's just in Menlo Park, and have reduced electricity emissions across San Mateo County by 98%. So that was a huge kind of systems change thing that led to our emission reductions. It wasn't like a singular city action. And a lot of our climate actions are reliant on partners and these sort of system changes. And then I'll note kind of our highest emission sector is our on-road transportation, which we'll get to talk a little bit about tonight too with strategies 2 and 3. And so we'll start with strategy number 1. And these are in priority order. So number 1 is our building electrification, exploring policy and program options to convert 95% of existing buildings to all electric by 2030. And below are the actions from the updated scope of work that are both short-term and ongoing, including adopt pre-wiring requirements for existing buildings in the short term and evaluate performance requirements for both new and existing buildings during the 2025 code cycle. Develop additional program options to disperse California Energy Commission grant funds, including opportunities for residents who are renting. Continue to evaluate and enhance a permit streamlining program, and require all electric construction for affordable housing built on city-owned land. And I think the EQC over this last year has touched almost all of these, so we are staying focused, which is great. And so some metrics associated with those activities through our permit fee waiver program. We've waived 742 permits for electrification related projects. So if someone's coming to the counter to replace their gas water heater or upgrade their electrical panel in order to go electric, we waive their permit fees. And that has, I guess, saved residents $276,000 in permit fees, but is also kind of a loss to the city's general fund on the other end of the coin. And then just in this fiscal year, we've waived 204 permits, which has been about $87,000 waived. Another interesting way to look at this data is 204 pieces of gas equipment were removed from the city through permitted work, which is an interesting metric.
It would only cost us that amount of money to remove them all.
Yes.
And it may not even be a loss to the general fund in as much as, number one, it's money spent on something good, but also we can't say how many of these projects would not have even happened if it hadn't been for the waiver. So
Oh, yeah,
that's a tremendous positive
Right.
part of it. Yeah.
That's a good point. And just 2 weeks ago, Liz sent out a mailer to all the folks who've received this fee waiver, asking what their motivations for going electric were. So we'll have some good data at a future EQC meeting on the motivators.
Sorry, question
Yeah,
on process.
okay.
So are you going to go through all of one and then get comment, whatever? You do
Yeah, I think
1,
that'll
2,
be-
3, and then comments? How do you want to?
Well, I guess I could leave it up to you all, how you want to run that.
I think we can run through the whole presentation and then,
And do the
and then maybe,
clarification
yeah,
and then public and then.
yeah.
It's probably the right, you've listened to the commissioner training. I think that's the right way to approach it. Okay. Additionally, we launched our home upgrade program since our last report, which is funded through the California Energy Commission grant. And we have an agreement with Peninsula Clean Energy for $2.21 million to electrify hopefully 100+ homes. And so we've specifically in Bellhaven for income eligible homeowners. We've received 53 applications and have completed 34 assessments, resulting in 18 signed participation agreements. 5 installations have been completed, and 2 of those have been fully electrified homes. And since, well, I was gonna say, we went to city council in March to make some program amendments. City council provided direction on a suite of options that the EQC reviewed. Thank you again, Commissioner Hill, for helping us organize everything. That was helpful.
Pleasure.
And the, council, gave guidance to increase the income eligibility to 120% of the area median income to allow really specific rental properties. So we're now working with 2 landlords and tenants who are both income eligible, which has been exciting. And we are also looking at a matching rebate program to help, Bellhaven residents who are not eligible or not interested in this kind of turnkey program. And we did get some more data from PCE on some of the attrition. And a lot of it's just like they lose contact, like the folks just won't answer the phone kind of after they do the assessment, and it's hard to kind of track. And they have a policy of like trying to contact the person 3 times and then they wait for the person to reach out. So working with them on figuring out how we can be a little more proactive with our applications. And then this is a data that's not readily available, I think, or easily shared or viewed, but PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, has providing Menlo Park residents with rebates. And anyone tuning in, if you're interested in rebates, definitely check out Peninsula Clean Energy's updated website. They have a great portal where you can find something that can help you out no matter where you're at in the process. They've provided 272 HVAC rebates, 188 water heater rebates, for a total of 460 rebates in Menlo Park. And I'll note that they've increased their water heater rebates this year because they're really looking to help the market transformation in anticipation of the Bay Area Air District's rules that impact residential water heaters.
I just want to add one thing for the public, is that the Peninsula Clean Energy rebates are not income eligible. So no matter your income level, you are eligible for it.
Yeah, and they will also do the home energy assessment, similar to how we're providing in Bellhaven for non-income eligible residents across the city. There will just be a copay to actually complete the work. Maybe copay is the wrong word, but it's not totally free. So looking at cap 2 and 3, and these are related, so we've combined them here, but setting a citywide goal for increasing EVs and decreasing gasoline sales and expanding access to EV charging for multifamily and commercial properties. And our implementation scope of works for the short term on this one is really centered around education and informing the stakeholders of current incentives and benefits, promoting existing information on EVs, affordability, and emphasizing current incentives, and evaluating potential partners for level 1 and level 2 charging. And Peninsula Clean Energy right now has a program for multifamily and commercial properties to get technical assistance and incentives to install EV charging. And so we've been working with them on how we can do co-branded mailers and further engage with that. And I think Menlo Park has the highest program uptake, or at least that's what I've been told anecdotally by Raphael, their director of energy programs, which is really exciting. In calendar year 2024, there were 63 ports installed in multifamily across Menlo Park. And there were 13 e-bike incentives issued and 12 used EV incentives issued. You can see the numbers since their program inception and their total value. And I was also told that there's 525 additional units in Menlo Park, or charging ports in progress. Okay, various stages. And so that wraps up the data that we do have and some of the kind of activities we've been taking over the last year across 1, 2, and 3 at a pretty high level. And so I'll revisit those questions around, what data is missing or would you like to see? Or, kind of how does this data make you feel about our progress, that sort of thing. What actions are of highest priority and what else would you like council to know related to these topics as I prepare the staff report for August? And with that, well, I'll keep this up in case there's any questions on specific slides. And I think we can go into clarifying questions now.
Thank you. Slaughter? Are there any clarifying questions from the EQC before we take public comment?
I have a question about what you want to hear from this.
Sure.
This is mostly about what data is needed as opposed to ideas on.
Ideas could be shared as well. Yeah, anything related to implementation of the CAP and tracking of CAP progress.
I have a just quick question. Can you remind me what's the difference between on-road transportation versus off-road transportation?
Yeah, the off-road transportation is what the state defines as like the landscaping equipment, generators.
Okay.
Yeah, there's SOAR is the small off-road equipment, that's like the landscaping equipment.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and construction equipment.
Along those lines, does the fact that we have electric trains going through town as opposed to diesel get factored in?
Yes, it will get factored in.
Great.
Well,
Yeah, it will.
oh,
That was my
Yeah.
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what, the definition is piggybacking on that one.
Yeah.
What are we counting? So, transportation, but is that traveling through the city, Menlo Park residents using transportation?
Yeah, it's both.
So it's additive?
Yes, it's both. So we're tracking, there's assumptions for Caltrain's fuel usage and emissions throughout the city.
And there's
Not just
assumptions
ours, but
Yeah.
anybody going.
Yeah. Yes.
So we get double counted?
No, we're not counting like, I'm not out there counting vehicles. Like the city doesn't maintain a count. It's all assumptions based off regional data and regional trackers from Caltrans.
I think so. Okay, thanks.
So in terms of the like the PT assessment, so I got the PT assessment, but when the contractor came to my house, he didn't explain like really well the program. And then I got like a DocuSign form like 2 weeks later, and I kind of ignored it. I'm like, I don't think I qualify because
Yeah.
he was like, oh, I don't think you qualify. That's what the contractor told me. So I did not even look at the DocuSign form. So I think it needs like more clarification of what they're doing. So then when we receive the information, then we can go in and be like, okay, yeah. Because that was my experience with PCE. And then I'm here like, yeah, income doesn't matter, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I even received like twice the DocuSign form and twice I ignored it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's helpful feedback. It's challenging, because we're not the ones out there, because I think if our staff were out there, we would.
Yeah.
Be able to really break down the communication and hoping to work with CRC to do more of that,
Yeah.
liaison work with homeowners.
yeah, and in terms of outreach, like what I had learned from my work, they had like all these surveys for us to use public transportation.
Mhm.
And when we ignore the emails, they wait for us at the entrance of the building. And they're like, do you want a $5 gift card?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I know, I remember that I had to fill it out, so I think like waiting like at the Bellhaven Community Campus or even here.
Mhm.
For people to see, hey, we have this program, what do you think?
Mhm.
Because people might not know because we receive like tons of emails from the city and
Yeah.
half of them go to our spam email. And the other half we ignore and
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, let's get into that in the discussion for sure.
You said that the income threshold has been increased, or that was
Yes.
council's suggestion to do that?
Yeah, and we've operationalized that with PCE, so we can now accept folks, yeah.
Will they also like go back to folks that didn't qualify?
Yeah,
previously?
we'll go back to folks too.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have anyone that we're going back to at the 120. We have landlords that we've gone back to who are at the 120.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my other question. You are now working with landlords and renters properties, and the criteria is based on the landlord's income or the renter's income?
On
or
both.
On both, they both have to
Yeah.
qualify?
But as the way PCE's forms work. The way their form works, or the way I think their form will work, they're still getting their attorney's review on it. But the way SVCE's is structured is that, they're just verifying the occupant's income. So in the field, the person's just gonna verify the occupant's income, and there's not really a way for us to verify the landlord's income. But we're still putting that parameter out there because we don't want, like large companies or, folks who really don't need that resource to take advantage of it.
That is, I'm thinking, the majority of the renters will pay for the utility
Yes,
themselves. So the landlord, whatever, right, but they're the ones who
Yeah.
pay.
yeah, and in some cases it will increase their utility bills because they'll have a new appliance like air conditioning, but in some cases it might decrease it because they'll have much more efficient equipment. And I believe, we have one household who's on like a Section 8 voucher, and so they pay just $100 a month to the landlord, and so their utilities are part of the calculation already, and so they won't be impacted.
What I was thinking is that the landlord has no incentive to do the upgrade.
Yeah, except for
The
like this
renter
Section 8.
does. So even whatever the income of the landlord is, it doesn't seem.
matter.
to
It's,
matter.
it's just the idea of hoping that, the landlord doesn't, raise rents or otherwise displace the tenant after they receive, $29,000 to $40,000 worth of upgrades. Yeah.
Any other clarifying questions? Okay. Then, do we have any public comment? Sorry.
Let me open it up for public comment. If you are in the room, you can fill out a card and hand it to me. If you are online, you can press the raise hand button, or you can press *9 if you're calling in, and I will be able to unmute you. I don't see any hands online, but we do have a card in the room. So we'll start with you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thanks again, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Park. Regarding potential advice to the council from the EQC. I think there's some reasons why this year there should be a focus on cap priority number one. Given that the building code upgrades are also happening this year. On the other hand, I understand this is coming to the council in August. I don't know when the building code upgrades are gonna happen. They might happen before that. But even if they happen before that, my hope is there's gonna be some ambitious goals in the building code upgrade, so there'll be work to be done. So it might be that, the potential advice would be, look at low hanging fruit for goals priorities 2 and 3, and have a special focus on priority number 1. And the other thing I might suggest is that this update, look at where we are in comparison to where we're intending to go, which is either 90 or 95% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from stationary sources by 2030. Because we got a long ways to go. I've been on two minds of that, one of which is maybe we need to address the difficulty in reaching that. On the other hand, I don't want to give up that goal, or at least not give up that goal without having something ambitious done instead. So, lastly, and this might be relevant to August, is the city's ability to do anything on stationary sources may be limited by AB 306, which a number of folks have heard about, which basically restricts the city's abilities to amend the building codes. August might not be too late for Menlo Park to weigh in on that. So my understanding is there are sign-on letters going around for local cities to oppose AB 306. That might be something that might be relevant for EQC to pass along to the council, that its ability to do this stuff might be restricted. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I don't see any hands raised online, so we can close public comment and return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay, we'll open it up for EQC discussion.
Suggestion, should we do first cap 1 and then?
Sure.
Let's start with emissions and then cap 1 and then.
So we'll start on cap 1, buildings, emissions reductions.
Want to put the slides in there?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
And share ideas, talk about missing data, what actions want to be prioritized, messages to council.
Okay, stop there before we get to cap one, just to look at the,
Sorry, it should be full screen soon.
We'll give everyone a chance to speak, but if someone wants to raise their hand and go first.
Good, you go.
Commissioner
oh,
Gill?
okay. So I said a couple of times over the year that I've been here that there's a trade-off when we're looking at greenhouse gas emissions between your operational emissions and your embodied emissions. And so that, for instance, when we are replacing gas HVAC setup with one that is a heat pump, there are embodied emissions that come along with the fact that we're manufacturing a new piece of equipment. And so this is not to stop or impede in any way what we're doing. It's more to put out there that we might look at it in maybe one of a couple of ways. One, we could just add it as a line like increased embodied emissions, added, because they don't go away, they don't go down. And then two, maybe for major cap related projects, we might have estimate of sort of the greenhouse gas emissions that are saved and the embodied emissions that are added. And it's merely to give sort of a trade-off and also to be able to perhaps even look at the financial efficiency of all of the projects that we do in that if we're thinking about trying to bring down embodied emissions as well as greenhouse gas emissions, we might come up with different ideas or smaller ways of doing things. So could turn out to be an accounting nightmare. I'm not gonna lie, it is an accounting nightmare. It's a nightmare suggestion. But it could be worthwhile because those emissions exist. And if we're tracking emissions, then we're tracking emissions.
Are the embodied emissions not counted in this?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that every time that I see a remodel in Willows, I think, well, there he goes. I mean, there's a lot of emissions in there.
And we could even, instead of directly tracking embodied emissions, have a list of activities that we're aware of from the perspective of the city that increase the city's embodied emissions, and maybe just a slide of text around, 15 building, well, it's probably more, 1,500 building permits. Just things that increase the city's embodied emissions, repaving 17 miles of road, just as sort of a reminder that, these things did exist. Does the activity of maintenance, it does get counted? The activity of.
Not in the way
maintenance,
you're
like
talking
operating, no, okay.
Cap 5 is like our municipal inventory, but it's looking at our fossil fuel use in buildings and in our fleet. It's not looking at the emissions from repaving. So we'll get to hear about this at our next meeting. The transportation team is doing some really cool things with repaving that it's like crunching up the gravel that's already there and reusing it in place instead of like hauling in new material. And
That's an incredible way to reduce embodied
Yeah.
emissions, because it wouldn't change the inventory
Mhm.
as much as it does if you include embodied emissions. I believe, I have that.
Yeah, these, I mean, the embodied emissions and remodels. It's probably totally unrealistic, but I wish we had the tax on that. And that could go into the general fund to be used for helping low income electrifying. Because if somebody is spending, just making that a number, $1.5 million in remodeling, tearing down a 1,400 square foot, to put 2,800 square foot, they probably can pay taxes on that.
They might view
Not
the
gonna-
permit fee as a tax already. I would offer it's not, that it covers administrative, but.
Yeah. But if you tax it as embedded emissions, then you can put it, you could justify putting it into a general fund for climate change.
Yeah, we could call it the, affordable housing fee. And add it on. So that's all I needed to say about embodied emissions. Let's not forget them.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I have a different, sorry, you're gonna take, first a reminder, you mentioned it, but hey, my hearing aid didn't catch it. The reduction of 44%, is that mostly because PCE has reduced their?
Correct.
Do we, so back on data, I would love to know what our, the real kilowatt hours that have have changed in this thing.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
I mean, in the US, we don't track separate, we track separate, gas and electricity. In Europe, when my family is paying for gas, it's computed as kilowatt.
Hmm.
Even though it's
Sure.
whatever it is. So you can actually compare this thing apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
And then I would love to see how the consumption of kilowatt hours in gas is going down and the consumption of kilowatt hours. Or I guess that's a proxy for greenhouse gases. So
Mhm.
that could be interesting because this number is interesting, but it's not telling us how much progress we're actually making in electrifying.
Yeah.
So that one. Now, the other thing is, the real problem with electrification right now is the electric rates are too high. I don't know where the city is willing to do anything about that, but I think it's the reality is that it's really hard to justify putting a heat pump when it's going to be more expensive to run than a gas. So that's an observation. But the other question I had is actually on the cap 2. No, cap 1. We listed as the goal is 95% of existing buildings to go all electric. I think we have mentioned this before. Why aren't we just counting kilowatt hours? Why are we going for all electric? It seems to me I mean, that's a great goal. And it has the advantage that you can cap the line, etc. But if somebody is all electric except the oven, the range, which some people are. I mean, it's something we're not getting credit for that, and it might make it harder to convince people to move. I don't know. I mean, it's a very nice goal, but it seems to me it's missing something. I mean, that's great to do, but what we really want to do is reduce greenhouse gas. 95% of buildings solar electric is a way to get there. But anyhow, that's my comment. I guess, just back to the first question, how much? Because I have a comment on the next one, but how much do we have on cap 1? How much is, I mean, it went down 44%. Is that,
So we don't have a count of like how many homes are electric. I mean, we've explored trying to get this data through like our permit software. We'd have to open the plan sets for every home, so that's not possible. However, there might be other like data tools that you all are aware of that we might be able to either buy a data set from, or maybe there's open data around it. Like I think Google had like an environmental explorer at one point. So if there's any tools or resources you're aware of to count buildings and count electrification progress.
the last time I looked into something like this, I was looking at the permit database. It has a bunch of things. You can try to find out how many houses have made a request to electrify something.
Mm.
But I didn't try to quantify what percentage of the housing stock has had an electrification event.
Maybe we could work
That
offline
that
on
could be
that
interesting
when
to
you're,
know.
yeah,
What's available.
in your next, yeah, chapter.
I had a couple of comments.
Yeah.
This slide that was titled background,
Mhm.
if you're gonna bring that to city council, I would encourage you to put dates, because it looks like a timeline, but
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be more helpful to them if they understand what's happening there date wise. I was gonna ask about the survey results, because I received a survey.
Oh, did you?
So
did
I
you fill
did,
it out?
I completed it.
Hmm.
And one question I found interesting that I loved the answers to were, like, how much did the permit fee waiver impact your, decision making?
Mhm.
So I'm very curious about that, because if it's not really impacting many people's decisions, and and the city's also in need of funds. You know, that might be something to consider. In terms of data, like overall, and I know, you know, we get this data, like the new data was 2023 data,
I
and
feel
here
like we
we are.
just got that a couple months ago. Yeah.
Exactly, like midway through 2025. But I think there's a part of me and maybe the collective us, because we keep circling back around to this convo of having some type of online counter or tracker for whatever the key metrics are, so that we can all see in more real time how we're doing. I would love to have some type of just full-on community engagement around this.
Yeah.
And it's easier to get people engaged if they can see how they're
I like that.
impacting. I think there was an example from a city in,
Oberlin, Ohio.
yeah, was that in a movie that we saw together? Was that 2040?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really inspiring, and they had these trackers in like all the public places, the schools, the kids were all tracking it in their classrooms, and
That was citywide.
it was citywide, yeah. But I think it was kind of limited. They had I think they were trying to reduce electricity usage. They were trying to be more efficient. So they had that data, right? So it's a slightly different thing that we're doing, but I like the concept.
Yeah, I like it.
And I guess I just have two last points. I think we talked offline about maybe using the $4.5 million for batteries and
Mhm.
solar, especially for lower income households, to help offset some of the costs of electrifying your house, not electrifying, but like running your electric. So I still like that idea. I'd love for us to consider that as a possible recommendation to city council. And then the last thing, which I feel like I'm kind of stealing our chair's thunder, is like, okay, well, if we're only like 27% of the way there, like, what else are we gonna do to do as much as we can to hit our goal? So, did I steal your thunder?
Some
Those are my
thunder
comments.
can't be stolen.
No. Echoed, and
We,
Mr. Schmidt as well. So that's what comes up for me as I look at this related to Cap One.
Commissioner Hernandez or Meyer?
I don't think I'm seeing right now, but. Sort of that.
Any thoughts, Commissioner Hernandez?
I don't know, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, this cap number one, to the public comment, I think this is a real opportunity this year for building codes. There are a variety of pathways the city could take on building codes that could address new buildings, existing buildings, air conditioners to heat pumps, et cetera. But there's this thread of this Assembly Bill 306, so. One, and I know there's work being done on that bill to amend it. We'll just have to see how that plays out, but. There could come a point where we need a plan B, and if AB 306 passes in its current form or a form pretty consistent with the way it's written now, then there could be a need to kind of look at other pathways and what are other ways that the city can, if not require, encourage folks to make the switch from gas to electric equipment, whether it's a new construction or an existing building. I think a lot of this, to Commissioner Headley's point, is just, getting the community somehow more engaged in the importance of doing this work, and making sure that folks are aware of all the resources that are out there to help them do the work, whether it's PCE or the switches on, or just contractors in the area that are doing this work. And, somehow getting this to be like a sense of pride in the community, like we're making this progress together, we're working together, we're helping each other. neighbors are talking to neighbors about it. So I don't know what role the city can play in that, but I always feel like outreach and engagement and awareness and education are really important to making progress, whether the building codes are requiring it or not, so. Some of my thoughts, yeah, if AB 306 does not pass, I think there's a really good opportunity for us to enact some strong building codes this year that can really help us accelerate progress.
If I may follow up here with Commissioner Hernandez. So I think Bellhaven is a focus of many of our activities, and my feeling is that it has been hard to reach out to that community. I mean, I haven't done much recently, but when I started 2 years ago, I went there and to several meetings, and I felt I was not being very effective in actually reaching out. Do you have ideas about how we can? I mean, among other things, we have talked about having meetings there, et cetera, but in general, it's like, how do we reach out to that community since you're, you live there?
Well, yeah, so I think because last month we had a meeting with Pam Jones and
Yeah.
and Juanita as organizations, and a lot of people went and they just gave like papers. So I think the community is ready for change, but I think we have failed on reaching them out. Yeah, and I think because a lot of the stuff that I see getting announced in Bellhaven is like at the last day kind of announcement, even with the community resources fair. They put like the flyers like the night before, like on a Friday when it was on a Saturday, and I was like, oh, people are not going to show up, and they still did because people talk to each other. So I guess we can do like next door neighbor. There's a lot of people in next door neighbor. We can also be like waiting at them at the entrance of the pool and the Bellhaven community and be like, hey, we're going to have this talk about the environment and explain, because people know like that having like clean energy is better for our health, and but people are worried about like if we had like blackout, and especially when we had it like last year, like I had it for 3 or 4 days with no electricity. And so luckily I had to go to work and do my work over there. But then like taking a shower, I had to use like boiled water on my gas range, and but I think there are going to be like a lot of events, and I think we can start getting like the people ready to talk to them about what the city has to offer, because a lot of people they don't know what they offer. Even my neighbor, he has like a Tesla, and he's charging his car like on the outside of the house when he can go like a block away and charge it at the city's EV chargers for free. But I haven't seen him yet, so to let him know like, hey, you can save some money and charge it a lot faster than, yeah.
Do you have, are you aware of that resilience package that was handed out a few months ago? That included some solar batteries and some solar panels.
No, yeah, so I wasn't aware, yeah, because a lot of the information is not posted, or if it is, they have like this thing where they put like a bunch of flyers. So if you don't look at the flyers, you don't know what's going on. But there's like once in a while I go and look at it, and, and it has like some stuff. So we need to be like talking to them. I know like the senior center, they have like on Wednesday they do like an announcement. So you talk to the seniors, they talk to more people, and then like the parents of the child development center, you can go and talk to them, and then they spread like the word. And
Those are great ideas.
Yeah, it sounds like there is a number of ways of doing it.
yeah, and then we can talk to Pam Jones and Juanita and the other groups, and
All roads go through pensions.
Commissioner Hernandez has been amazing in helping us spread the word already through with Love Our Earth. Has been kind of one initiative that he's supported staff on. So thank you. As well as you too.
Yeah, but I'm not in that community. I can speak. Yeah. So the second thought is just reinforcing what Commissioner Headley mentioned is. At the end of the day, if you can save money, people will do it. I mean, in my experience, that everybody that has a solar panel goes nuts and trying to reuse as much as they can of the solar panel productivity. I mean, it just becomes almost an obsession. If you put batteries and solar panels, everybody will electrify everything.
Yeah.
Mhm,
I mean, it's a multiplier.
mhm. That's
I
fine.
think it totally is worth it.
Well, and the technology is getting better, like the heat pumps for the washer and dryer. It uses like so little energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, right now it's like $1,600. But if it lasts like 10 years, you will save a lot of money in those 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, to that point, Peninsula Clean Energy and SVCE just came out with a report on the bill impacts of home electrification, and the top line result is that on average, homes save $30 a month by switching to heat pumps.
If you could share
So-
that.
That's the kind of, yeah, I'll definitely share it, and it's the kind of thing that we can all be familiar with and be able to talk to folks about those results to give them a little peace of mind that, yeah, you know, there's a really good chance you'll actually save money on a monthly basis. And there's help up front to cover those additional costs of the installation. So.
Yeah.
Spreading that word is important too.
If you can email to me, I can email to everyone.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or ideas or questions from commissioners?
It's still just cap one, right?
Yeah, just cap one for now. Okay.
Actually, I do kind of have a question. So in August, we're presenting to city council. Are you gonna put forward the building code recommendations at that time, or will that be separate?
No, that'll be separate. So in May, the EQC will make a recommendation on which building codes based on kind of staff's presentation. And then in a later meeting in May, city council will have a study session on the EQC's recommendation. And that's where we'll get direction to like fully draft an ordinance or not, but. And we will be doing some outreach, in advance of the EQC meeting, so we at least have a temperature check on the community.
So I think it has been mentioned before, and you may already know this, but these 306 passes. The window and of putting any changes is, I believe, June 1st. So if it either makes it or it's gone for 6 years.
And we are aware of that.
Okay, let's move on to cap items 2 and 3. Anybody want to lead us off?
I will let me go first. I go second. Or third.
I don't have any comments on 2 and 3, actually.
Oh, I have that.
Go first.
You want to go?
Okay, I'll, go.
I have a
Commissioner
short
Meyer?
comment. I was looking back at the goals, just on that kind of action plan.
Yeah.
The second part of strategy 2 is decreasing gasoline sales by 10% a year. 2018 baseline, do we have data on that?
So that data came from Cultura, which is a nonprofit. Are you familiar with them? They're like, I think. Executive director or. Right in line there. She lives in Menlo Park. So I've been working with her to try to understand that data a little bit better, but. It hasn't been like the largest priority for me, so I think I owe her some emails. But that is something I could follow up with you on. So the question there is like understanding what the 2018 baseline data looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Commissioner Olivia Yopper?
Yeah, wanna show slide 10?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. I assume that that's roughly the way the goal is, correct? City, to set citywide goal for
Oops, sorry,
next one?
it, has a mind of its own,
Increasing increasing EVs, right?
yes.
And decreasing, but let me focus on the increasing EVs. It could be that the easiest way is to sell more, to get more e-bikes.
Yeah, that would be a nice addition.
Sorry?
That would be a nice addition.
You mean,
Well, it's there, so it's EVs,
That's true.
it doesn't say four-wheeled EVs,
Yeah.
it's EV.
you mean like
Yeah.
so city employees are scooting around on e-bikes?
Actually, I mean, I think that we all should be using e-bikes. The problem is that there are no good bicycle lanes, et cetera, so that's the whole thing. Another problem is that people are not testing them, so one idea would be to have a loan program for e-bikes and then try it out, but I think I mentioned this last time. I was in Paris and in Barcelona. It's just amazing the changes that have happened there, and a lot part of it is e-bikes. I mean, there's a very good bicycle infrastructure, but e-bikes changes the equation, because you can ride faster, you can ride with the same speed as cars, or roughly. You don't get sweaty. An older person can do it. So if what we're looking at is increasing EVs and also decreasing car use. So that's one that I think we should put it on the table. It qualifies. It's an EV.
It's tricky because at least to my observation within the city of Menlo Park. Number one, the opportunity for EVs is huge. The climate is great. The distances are fairly small. It's almost like a walkable city. But to my observation, people do not use the roads on a bicycle correctly. To the
Yeah, yeah.
extent that we're looking at some serious safety problems, and if so, the city makes an effort to put more people on bicycles, which again, I would love. People need to understand how to operate, and there's it's kind of a double click when it comes to EVs because e-bikes, because you get your people who are too young for a driver's license, who are on these vehicles that are going the speed of traffic and do not know how to operate in traffic. And that's been solved, if I recollect correctly, when I lived in France, there was a little moped license you had to get when you're, I don't know, 16 or so, some odd. So clearly that's a state thing that we can't do, but I think that my point is we could run informal, like how to ride your e-bike. In addition to what happens through the schools and various nonprofits teaching people how to ride a bike. Overall, these efforts have not made a dent. And so adding e-bikes, particularly with youngsters, sort of sets up a dangerous situation that I'm just calling it out. I'm not saying let's not, I'm just saying we need to factor that in somehow, the safety, and in particular, the extreme sort of chaos that is introduced when people who are on the road who don't believe that bicycles should be on the road. Then are also dealing with bicycles that are not operated properly. It does become tricky. And you start to build resistance to e-bikes and people wanting to ban e-bikes and go in the wrong direction. So just an observation.
Yeah, so we live on Gilbert Avenue. And Gilbert Avenue is a venue to go to Laurel, up and down. It's amazing the number of bicycles that are going in there. Quite a number of them are adults taking their kids on electric bicycles. Electric cargos, different versions. I think a part of that is an influx of Europeans, born people that have moved into here. Part of that is just different generations. And a bit to my surprise, most of them, we have a stop sign in front of our, two houses. A bit to my surprise, most of them, almost all of them are actually doing a stop sign. So I think
stop. Or
they do.
Ah.
So I think that there's a change in the last 2 years, accelerating change. And I think that people are behaving much better about that one. I also see a lot of workers in Palo Alto, going to downtown Palo Alto, working in the restaurant industry, and they use e-bikes all the time. So I think this is real. I think that this actually can happen.
I mean, it's such a great answer for so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to fill in a few more pieces, I live on Willow Road, 2 doors down from a stop sign. And not only do bicycles not stop at that stop sign, to be honest, it's amazingly because I live 2 blocks away from the police station, cars don't stop at that stop sign. And it is a mid-block stop sign, it's a little awkward. But I think what we see is, according to the press I've read, behavior on the streets markedly declined during the pandemic for reasons I don't understand. There's an increase in the number of fatalities and traffic accidents per capita, even though total traffic went down. People were a little crazy. I guess we were all crazy. And it's unclear, I guess it's a mixed bag, but unclear how much we have gotten better, but particularly because I'm on also on a school commute route. I see young people with high speeds on their e-bikes.
Are those high schoolers?
No, middle schoolers mostly.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the high schoolers, because of, if you think of where I live, you'll see the middle schoolers, not so much the high school.
I see that on middle as well, which is more middle schools going to Oaknall, sorry, not Oaknall, but Hillview.
So it's,
I think there's a huge opportunity to educate, so maybe partnering with the schools to make sure that information's getting to these youngsters. How
so
to do things
I
safely.
used to work for the Menlo Park City School District on bicycle safety and transportation and safe routes to school. And there's no shortage of educational efforts, and children do pay attention and learn. But it's a big world. I'm not, I think there might be other avenues that we could also start up in tandem to that.
I'll offer in May, our transportation planner, Katrine Machi, will be presenting, so we'll
Great.
get an opportunity
Yeah.
to talk with an actual expert on transportation, because I can't respond to any of the questions you all have related to it.
So I have 2 other thoughts here. One is Waymo.
What?
Waymo,
Waymo.
I mean, anything like Waymo, but right now it's just Waymo. I think that we're talking about a program from now for several years, right?
Yes.
So the adoption is increasing in different peninsula cities. And if our goal is to reduce, this is more for, I guess, cap 4, which is vehicle miles.
Mhm.
But it's also somewhat related on this one. It's like if you can just jump into a Waymo and get to downtown, you don't need a car.
Mm.
And then the last thought is.
You don't need a parking spot,
Sorry, what?
and you don't need a parking spot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
You didn't mention that one, but yeah. And then the last one is the Caltrain electric trains. I think it's wild. Right, it's just, the ridership has been going up. And to me, it just tells, if you have the right product, people will use it. And the right product is a cleaner, nicer Wi-Fi. On time, faster. So I don't know what the right product here is, but I mean, Waymo is the closest thing I can. Right? The modern Waymos are beginning to come, they're kind of mini buses, things like that. I mean, you just jump onto this thing, use your app, get it to come to you, maybe share with a share ride with other people and go to downtown. Who needs a car?
So Waymo is in Menlo Park?
Not yet.
But soon.
Well, it should. I mean, it is beginning to show up in Palo Alto. It's in Mountain View. They want to expand. I don't know what, I mean, that's something that has to be done at the city level.
It's state
Don't you have
authority.
to include them?
No, it's state authority, it's my understanding.
No, but I think that they have to, they have to ask permit for the city to run. To do trials.
I'll have to look into that.
I
Like
think
a
so.
taxi permit sort of a thing?
Sure.
Taxi permit sort of a thing?
Well, that's for charging, but I think that before that, they have to have a relationship to actually be, they have to train their vehicles. So they have to start running and training vehicles. So they're beginning to show up in Palo Alto. I think they're running for Fee and Mountain View. But they have to start.
Yeah,
training.
someone in the wild in Mountain View 2 days ago. It
Yeah,
was sitting by the curb, running all of its little equipment. Empty, doing its cogitating.
Yeah, they're waiting, yeah. That's
Would
it.
the chair be willing to briefly reopen public comment?
Yes, fine with me. Is that okay with?
Yeah,
Okay.
let me pause and reopen public comment. Okay, we're opening public comment for item D2, discussing climate action plan progress report. If you would like to make public comment and you're in the room, we can get your name after your comment. If you're online, you can raise your hand or press the *9 button and we'll be able to unmute you if you'd like to make public comment on item D2, discuss climate action plan. So we have one public comment in the room. We
Yes.
can start there.
Thank you, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Spark. The comments on Waymo, triggered a thought in my mind, because I remember when the expansion was announced to Palo Alto area. I looked on the map, I was like, I saw Menlo Park was right next to the expansion area, but not included. And that was right around the time that my organization, Menlo Spark, was starting to consider hiring somebody. And in our hiring criteria, I had included driver's license, because they need to be able to drive. And if Waymo had been expanded to Menlo Park, I would have eliminated that requirement. So I think there's some good reasons to think about that issue, and I also believe it is correct that there has to be some level of state level agreement to do this. But at the same time, the city could send a letter to the state, send a letter to Waymo, saying, we would love to have this expansion happen in our area, and we would be willing to help facilitate it.
Yeah, I don't remember the full list, but there was a fairly large list of cities that had been approved for expansion.
So I just thought I'd add that as a potential fairly easy thing for the city council to use to do this, to say, this would be a great thing to have. And as somebody with aging parents, I can just also say that there's a lot of people that can't drive anymore. So, or should not drive, even if they are. So,
I'm
So I
curious
would-
for you all, what has you more interested in Waymo than say Lyft or Uber?
Well, I think they're electric, right?
You can also get electric with
Sure.
Lyft, but is there any other reason? I mean, I'm down with all of it. I'm just curious why.
Should I close
yeah.
public comment?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, let me make sure there's no hands online, so I can return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay. And reopen it for discussion amongst EQC commissioners.
Yeah.
Well, I think longer term Waymo is the way to go, because the operating cost is going to keep going down. And yeah, yeah,
Is
I
it
think,
cheaper?
sorry,
Is it cheaper?
no, not right now,
No.
not that I'm aware of.
What-
Actually, I think it's more expensive.
Yeah, it can be double the price compared to an Uber or a Lyft, and then it can take double the time if you're going to a place in average,
Waymo takes longer?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
because they're being like super safe at not having accidents, so that's why it takes longer. And Uber driver, they're like, okay, I will
Yeah,
ignore some stuff and other, I will pay. Yeah,
I
I
just
think
got
that
a SF
longer
Chronicle alert
term-
about Waymo expanding to the peninsula.
That's
So there-
what it is.
I just got a Chronicle alert. Waymo wants to expand its footprint as it seeks to offer fared robotaxi in South Bay and Peninsula.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're listening to us.
They have-
Yeah. interesting.
I
Other
think-
reasons though for.
I think it's the future. I think the longer term,
Maybe someone who's phenomenal.
a lot of people feel more comfortable. Let's see, my kids are just all sold on Waymo, right? It's like.
Like they feel more comfortable being in
They
a car
feel more
without a human.
comfortable,
Yeah.
They also
Yeah.
don't have to interact with the driver,
Yeah,
for better or for worse.
yeah,
I also can see how it can easily scale into a shared drive. Where you can have multiple people asking and system chooses I mean, right?
so yes, I have a comment about the e-bike, so I have an e-bike and I bike, as long as it's not raining, every day to work, and to me, it's a lot faster to go on my e-bike than taking my car.
Yeah.
And then even getting there, like, I don't have to spend like half an hour finding like a parking space and paying for a parking space, so that's the way to present it to people, like, you don't have to look for a parking space. Because I just get to the hospital, the first truck that I find,
save time, save money.
yeah, and even if I had to do like a home visit, it's easier for me to come and pick up my car from my house. And then drive to San Jose than come and park the car over here at Stanford and then drive there, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember talking with some people from Amsterdam. And asking them, well, okay, that was years ago, it's like, Amsterdam, bicycles are, how come you're not using a bicycle? Well, sir, I would never use here because it's not useful, it's not to my benefit. I do it in Amsterdam because it's beneficial. Here, it's not, but e-bikes changes the equation.
Yeah.
Because you can go faster, you can, it's like having a car, but without having a car.
Yeah,
A little farther, easier.
yeah, the only problem is like the roads are not safe, because if you're like driving from Bellhaven through here, you're fine as long as you don't touch the Camino, and I even touch for a little bit, then I go through Sun Hill and even in Sun Hill, like getting into the hospital, it can be a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, it's a
And I
typical
bike.
chicken and egg, but I think that if the demand is there, then we can force.
Yeah.
The changes. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think all of these changes are happening and will happen, just. We're here trying to accelerate this and, avoid those tipping points. Any other thoughts on cap 2 and 3?
And one last thought about the data. I don't remember seeing as much data for cap 2 and 3. So if we're really tracking our gasoline sales actually going down and how is that looking? And, I imagine that we can easily get a number of EVs from like the state.
We can.
But I don't think e-bikes have the same licensing requirements.
I'll look into that because in theory, I think you're supposed to register your bike with the city you live in. I don't know if
Maybe.
anyone does that, but
Or maybe we can find like some other number about sales, but it would be
Yeah.
interesting to track. So we have the incentives from PCE, like how many people took advantage of the e-bike incentive, but I think other metrics, maybe even, I don't know if we want to include scooters, like electric scooters, e-bikes, EVs.
Yeah,
And then, so hopefully those are all going up and hopefully gasoline sales are going
Yeah.
down. And it would just be nice to see that.
Yeah.
In the presentation to city council.
that's helpful. And I heard that from Commissioner Meyer too. So I'll get my data together in that area.
Yeah, I think cap 2 and 3, just like cap 1, the more that we can do on outreach and education and engagement with the community. Letting people know that there's a good chance you're gonna save money on your home bill, if you electrify, and. I don't know if everybody knows this, but like, owning an electric vehicle is dirt cheap, like, there are no repairs you have to do, no maintenance. Repairs, of course, occasionally, but the maintenance fees are virtually zero, compared to a internal combustion vehicle. Just the co-benefits of better air quality, quieter, I think about the parklets on downtown streets and you're outdoors eating dinner and it's so much nicer when an electric vehicle goes by versus a combustion vehicle. Yeah, so just, and like, I heard on the radio today, they were talking about tariffs and how that's gonna increase the cost of auto repairs, and I was thinking to myself, how, well, I have an EV, I'm really fortunate that I don't really have to worry about that, because I've taken my car in once to the shop in the 3 years that I've owned it, and, it was just for new tires, so, which I haven't bought a car then too, but.
I mean, you have a car, it's gonna have some.
But adding to the point about saving money, I'm thinking about your example. So if people have e-bikes and they're mostly using their e-bike, and then they maybe have a car, maybe that they share with other people, but the miles going down on your car, you can call your insurance company and say, like, I'm only driving like 3,000 miles a year now instead of 10 or 12, and they'll reduce your rates, which is kind of huge.
and I bet most people have not thought.
Probably not.
Well, and it's true because my car is like 8 years old and it only has like 40K miles. 40,000 miles, and most of them was before I got like my electric bicycle. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and then the last point is if there's other, even as commissioners or just look at other ways to get electric vehicle charging into multifamily. Beyond Peninsula Clean Energy's great program, there's probably other vendors out there that are focused on that and could provide assistance to the city and ramp up that installation of those chargers.
That's going to be part of our presentation next week, next month.
EV charging?
Yeah.
No, but I could throw some of these facts in if I'm able to find them in time.
I would be curious where anything has happened about, it's electric, that type of, citywide, curbside, charging.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, Alameda is doing it, San Francisco is doing it, there are some cities in the Bay Area that are actually.
Yeah, we were just awarded 2.3 million and the city council authorized a resolution last night accepting the funds from MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, for EV charging. So we'll have 36 ports here at City Hall and then an additional 4 in parking lot 7 and 8. And those will be DC fast charging. And through that grant, there was the opportunity to do like curbside charging. So some other cities in San Mateo County are doing that technology. And actually Anna, who's joining us for the next presentation, spearheaded that grant effort. But with some of our parking rules, it was tricky to navigate that with our overnight parking. Having the, so we're still working through that.
Paris has a bit like that, and there's a fair amount of. Just park there, charge it, and continue, right? It's like, you charge whatever you can.
And Anna, it did join us online too, so
Cool.
we can move on or not.
Any other last comments, questions, thoughts? Okay. Then we will move on to item D3 to discuss state, federal, and additional grant opportunities. For this item, staff will introduce the topic and our guest presenter.
Yeah, so I'll start by introducing Anna, who's works with Rincon Consultant and supports the countywide regionally integrated climate action planning suite, or RICAPS. And over the last few months, RICAPS has been looking at different grant opportunities and how we can work collaboratively as a region in applying for funds, so we can be more intentional, more competitive, and really think through kind of some systems change with funding opportunities. And this item was originally on the work plan from previous Chair Schmidt, who was anticipating the Prop 4 climate bond and wanting to have the EQC discuss how the city should address that funding. And so Anna provided a really timely presentation to RICAPS to city staff last month, which we hosted at Menlo Park City Hall. And we're like, could you spare an evening to join us to talk to our commission about that? So we're excited to have Anna here. And I allowed Anna to talk, I believe. Are you there, Anna?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. And then if you're not on video, we won't see you on the screen. So that's just for the folks here.
Yeah, I couldn't, it just offered me to unmute. I didn't have an option to come on video, and I also am ready to share screen if you'd like me to, or I can also just go if you've got the slides.
Okay.
Oh, here
can
we go.
share-
Join.
I promoted to panelist. Does that help with the video? And then you're welcome to share if you don't want to say next slide, or I can also share.
Okay, sorry, I had to rejoin as a panelist and it cut out there for a little bit. I think you were offering to either screen share or I can screen share, but I've got it up here, so why don't I just go ahead and do
Okay.
it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
Let's do this. Alrighty. How does that look on your end?
It is loading for us and we're good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Excellent. Alrighty. Well, good evening, everyone. Rachel, thank you for the intro. My name is Anna. I am a senior climate planner at Rincon Consultants, and Rincon Consultants is a firm that is partnering with the County of San Mateo's Office of Sustainability to help facilitate our RICAPS program, or the Countywide Climate Collaborative Program. RICAPS stands for the Regionally Integrated Climate Action Planning Support Program, which is a mouthful, so we just stick with RICAPS. And as I'm sure you all are probably pretty well aware of, we have regular meetings that we host, as well as some implementation groups that we facilitate as well. We've got some focus areas this year that we're working on: mode shift, electric vehicle infrastructure spreading across the county, as well as building electrification. So very much on theme with everything we've been discussing this evening. In addition to generally helping facilitate these sorts of meetings and these group working projects, I, as Rachel said, prepared this presentation for our RICAPS working group in March, and it covers a little bit of covers the basics around Proposition 4, California's climate bond, that was recently approved last November. And we wanted to bring it here to you all to give you a quick overview on what our firm has been kind of tracking in terms of those dollars we anticipate coming hopefully soon to be able to help promote climate action and resiliency across the state. So to start off, I'll give a quick introduction to what Prop 4 is. Prop 4 is a $10 billion with a B, $10 billion bond initiative that's looking to put those dollars towards climate resilience initiatives. It was approved by California voters, like I said, back in November 2024. It was approved at a 60% margin approval rate, which is very exciting. And it was put on the ballot by this kind of coalition of somewhere around 180 different organizations that came together with this idea to bring it forward in the ballot. And the proposition itself is themed or organized around a handful of different themes that you can see here on the screen: water resources, wildfire prevention, coastal resilience, biodiversity, clean air or clean energy, and urban greening. And you'll see in some later slides here, those are the main buckets that the budget is currently being allocated by. So it's important to kind of keep an eye on what those buckets look like and what they really mean in terms of the types of projects that they're funding. Right now, it looks like roughly 30 different state entities will be overseeing the funding, and I'll talk in a later slide a little bit about who some of those state entities are slated to be and what sorts of funding opportunities they'll be overseeing. They are really putting an emphasis through this bond opportunity on dedicating funding to tribal entities, farm worker groups, and vulnerable, under-resourced, underserved communities. 40% of all Prop 4 dollars have been designated to go towards disadvantaged communities, with 10% having to be allocated, at least 10% having to be allocated to severely disadvantaged communities. So they've really made a push to make sure that we're prioritizing dollars are going to be benefiting those types of communities. They also, too, have a strong focus on multi-benefit projects, which makes a lot of sense. I know I'm preaching to the choir here in this room, but we've reached a point where we can no longer just go after one goal or one tactic. We need to have projects, programs, policies that are going to be targeting a multitude of different benefits to bring about change in our communities. And of course, too, they're really putting emphasis on leveraging funds to make their dollars go further. And the California Natural Resources Agency is who is going to be overseeing the whole, California climate bond funding as a whole, and they will be reporting on an annual basis on the status of those funds on numerous different metrics, where dollars have been spent, what sorts of benefits have been felt in different communities by way of these dollars being spent, all of the types of things that you can imagine having to be tracked as a grantee on your dollars being spent. The Natural Resources Agency, the State Natural Resources Agency, will be responsible for reporting on that as a whole overall on all Prop 4 funding. So that's a little bit of an overview on Prop 4. And now what I have on the screen in front of you is a bird's eye view of currently, as it stands, what the key funding categories look like for funding allocations. Like I said, the Prop 4 is being categorized in these kind of handful of different types of spending buckets. And so we've got a large amount here going towards safe drinking water, drought, flood, and water resilience. That is the blue piece of the pie there, $3.8 billion. Wildfire and forest resilience is 1.5 million. Coastal resilience, 1.2 billion. Clean air, also referred to by some other entities as clean energy, 850 million. Extreme heat mitigation, 450 million. Park creation and outdoor access, 700 million. Climate smart agriculture, 300 million. And then biodiversity protection in nature-based climate solutions, 1.2 billion. And here are some additional numbers for you all to consider. This is what Governor Newsom's Prop 4 funding proposal multi-year spending plan looks like, which was put forward in the last couple of months here. And this is looking at a spending plan again in the next handful of years. So what's interesting on this slide here is you can see what is currently being proposed to be spent in the more immediate short-term future here, and then looking out in further years. The state is really putting an emphasis on trying to get these dollars out soon. I know from after attending a couple of webinars myself about Prop 4 funding, they are no stranger to the fact that a lot of entities are having funding issues given current administration changes at the federal level. And so they're really hoping to push this out as quickly as possible in the sooner years to be able to help bridge gaps or fill in funding gaps that might have come to light given the current federal situation. And like I said earlier, I wanted to spend a little bit of time here talking about some of the different agencies that we know are going to be receiving some of this funding. This is not an exhaustive list here, what you see on the screen, but rather a list of entities that have already been identified. As I understand it, they're still identifying certain agencies that will be overseeing some buckets of funding, so it's not completely finalized, but these are agencies that have been identified to receive funding as of now. And as you can see on this Venn diagram, there are two different sorts of types of funding being received. One is direct allocation and one is grants. In direct allocations, those dollars go directly to state agencies and state departments to be used for state-led programs or program deliveries. And then on the other side, under grants, those go to external entities like cities, counties, tribes, nonprofits to be used for competitive or formula-based local projects. So it's super interesting to know where dollars are going to be spent under the direct allocation bucket. But as I understand it, I think a lot of local agencies, local jurisdictions like you all are trying to keep an eye on what sorts of grant opportunities are going to be coming down the pike that you all can apply for. So those would be the funds that are going to be administered under this either yellow or green bucket, showing the different agencies overseeing the grant funding. I also too included in the slides that I sent over to Rachel some more detailed breakdown of funding spending plans for different agencies. And I didn't include it here in the slide deck because it's just a lot of words and a lot of numbers that if you're anything like me at 6 p.m. on is it a Wednesday night or a Thursday night? Whatever night of the week it is, kind of goes in one ear and out the other, but those slides are in the packet. And so I'm not sure, Rachel, how you disseminate the actual PowerPoint itself, but if folks want to look at those numbers, they are a part of the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, they have
all
a
of those
packet.
I unmuted the wrong one. They have those in their packet.
Okay, great. So then here, what I've got now is an estimated timeline for fund availability. If you're anything like me, you are probably wondering, okay, what does this mean for me in terms of when can I go after grant funding? And as I'm sure you can imagine, it is a somewhat longer timeline than, voters approving something in November and then dollars showing up the next day. It takes a little bit more time, of course, than that. We, like I said, had the voter approval of this bond measure in November 2024. And the governor released his initial Prop 4 budget proposal packet, which I shared on a previous screen in January of this year. And a May 2025 budget revise will refine those spending plans based on updated fiscal numbers, conditions, and feedback from different committees. And then legislative appropriations are expected in June or July of 2025, which means that bond issuance and agency appropriation, states are going to start issuing bonds in mid to late 2025. Agencies will then begin planning and developing programs, guidelines in late 2025 through early 2026, which means we anticipate grant programs to begin rolling out through different cycles and award programs from mid 2026 and onward, because again, we've got multi-year spending plans here. So that is, you know, kind of longer horizon. When I gave this presentation to our RICAPS team, I treaded this territory lightly, because what I don't want to insinuate is that you have a few years until you need to start thinking about this, even though it looks like grant award or grant applications and awards aren't coming out for, you know, at least another year or so. What that means is that entities, agencies, jurisdictions like you all have a year now to start thinking about different types of programs, different types of projects that could use funding in your communities. Now is the time to start identifying where there are gaps in your communities, where there are areas, neighborhoods that are really under-resourced for certain efforts that need, could use some additional funding to get to, you know, necessary or desired outcomes. It takes, as I'm sure you all know, a very long time to prepare a competitive grant proposal. And I would argue that 9 out of 10 successful grant applications are not created once grants are released. They are efforts that have been cooking for months, if not years, before grant applications become available, and then have a really strong proposal that are super competitive, show strong partnerships, show strong data, that is really difficult to compile just in like the short amount of months that grant opportunities are actually open themselves. So anyways, I just like to say on this slide here, for anyone that we're talking to about timeline here, that this does not mean that you have a year to wait until you start thinking about projects. Now is the time to start thinking about different opportunities where you could use Prop 4 funding, and thinking about how do you pre-position yourself in your community with different potential project ideas that could be competitive to receive funding. Okay, I think this is my second to last slide. So in some of the webinars that I have participated in through the State Natural Resources Agency, they've emphasized a couple of points on these grant funding, grant opportunities that are going to be coming out of this bond measure. And I think it's important to call out here that they're really trying to emphasize making the grant process more easy and efficient for applicants. They have heard people complaining quite a bit about processes and how long things take and how difficult the application process is and how difficult receiving funds can be for agencies. And so they're really trying to make things a lot easier and a lot smoother for applicants and grant awardees alike. Like I said, they're really trying to emphasize multi-benefit projects in terms of which efforts are going to be most competitive for different funding opportunities. And 2, they've emphasized that jurisdictions can apply for multiple grants. You are not limited to a certain set, although I think certain grant programs will have their own limits or their own caps. Like, for example, if the Department of Water Resources releases a grant program, you might only be able to submit one grant application as the City of Menlo Park, depending on that grant's specific stipulations, although you are not limited to one grant application across all different grant programs that will come out of Prop 4 funding. I already spoke on the different allocations for disadvantaged communities. And I also already spoke to on the urgency to distribute funds. Like I said, they've been really emphasizing that they want to get these dollars out as quickly as possible. And then lastly, in your packet that you have received, there are a couple of links here on ways that you all can stay involved on the progress of Prop 4 funding. First off, on that link at the top there is a survey out where you all can provide feedback on your experiences working with different grant programs. They're really hoping to shape these to improve the different grant programs that come out of Prop 4 funding. And this survey is one example of how they're trying to collect input, collect intel from folks who have received funding to hear how they can improve. There's also a listserv that I highly recommend you join. That listserv is going to be where you can hear first from the Natural Resources Agency any updates around Prop 4 funding and program updates. And then there was one webinar that I attended that I could find online that was held in on March 17th that gave a little bit of an overview on the climate bond. It is helpful, but it is a pretty broad overview. It doesn't go into too much detail beyond what I shared. Honestly, I go into a little bit more detail than they did on that webinar, but it is there if you're interested in watching. And then I also have some useful links here and references for your leisurely reading as you would like. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Clarifying questions?
Yeah, thank you, Anna, very much for that great presentation. Are there any clarifying questions from EQC?
Yeah.
Commissioner Headley?
Thank you. I have one. I was curious about the definition of disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged.
Yeah, that's a great question and one that we got at the RICAPS meeting as well. And I wasn't able to find a discrete definition, at least not yet. I think it will depend on the grant programs themselves potentially, although I wouldn't be surprised if the Natural Resources Agency releases some formal definition across all programming. What we typically have been defaulting to have been Cal EnviroScreen data, but I can't confirm if that's the set definition that they'll be using.
Thank you.
And I just have a follow-up to that. Does it apply to the jurisdiction that is applying or the community for which the project is intended?
I imagine it would be for the community in which it's intended. I haven't ever seen any kind of application or state or federal or other that limits it by the jurisdiction that's applying, but rather the area that you're focusing on.
Mark?
But, under the key funding categories, I see the clean air category, then Governor Newsom's budget has clean energy. Is that just? I mean, like, they're similar but different categories. Different overarching ideas, energy versus clean air.
Yes, they are used somewhat interchangeably from the resources that I've found. It's referring to the same bucket of funds, and I've seen a couple of different resources referring to them in either one way or the other. I agree that they're different buckets by definition, but they're referred to interchangeably here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Lauder, do we have any public comment on this item?
Sure, let me open up public comment. If you have comment and you're in the room, you can hand me a card. If you're online and you have public comment, you can press the raise hand button. And if you're calling in, you can press *9 and I'll be able to unmute you. I don't see any cards in the room or hands online, so we can close public comment and return the meeting to you, Chair.
Great, we'll open it up to EQC discussion.
Well, this is so exciting. And thank
Yeah.
you for the great presentation, Anna. Yeah, and thank you for bringing her here.
Yeah,
Rachel.
of course.
And I like that we're getting this information sort of early on.
Yeah.
I guess all of us at some point were aware of Prop 4, but I mean, really in the ebb and flow
Yeah.
of things, you don't track it. So it's great to know that we can focus our thinking for another grant proposal.
Mhm.
I just had a question. I don't think it's possible, but there's no allocations in this bond for electrification per se, like homes, buildings. Correct?
That does fall under the clean energy or clean air bucket, and there are some electrification related type programs that I've seen being mentioned around Prop 4 funding under that bucket, but I can't confirm if there are specific types of programs that have been defined in that way just yet. I just pulled up too on my side. I can go back to sharing screen. One of the slides that I had kind of hidden at the end there, the one that has a little bit more detail on potential projects being spent under the clean air bucket. So it's energy related here, but as you called out, there's no specific bucket per se that's for example, like dollars to go to homeowners to help electrify their homes. Although there are these more broader buckets that are related to electrification that I could imagine seeing some kind of trickle down effect on supporting electrification in the long run in communities, either be it by a subset like mini grant program that falls under this bucket that is targeted at this kind of like homeowner building electrification at the community level, or unlocking other possibilities because of kind of downstream impacts.
PCE probably would be interested in the last bucket. The demand side, grid support programs, load reduction. It's a relatively small, bucket, 50 million, but. I mean, I bet a lot of people are going to be interested in that part.
So, Anna, you mentioned sort of getting started early on the process. What are you recommending that cities start doing now? Is it sort of looking across their city and trying to match up needs in the city versus opportunities through the bond? And then to Rachel, like, what can the EQC do to help you?
And you can go first if.
Sure. Yeah, I can quickly just give my 2 cents. I would say, I think the way I have heard of projects being most competitive and all sorts of different funding opportunities becoming available in recent days, they've been projects that are, first of all, very much anchored around the community that they're serving. So, I mean, as we all heard, there's a specific focus from this funding on disadvantaged communities. So I think a first step would be to look at Menlo Park census tracts to identify where you have underserved, under-resourced communities, and thinking through specific programs that could benefit those communities in particular. And then also too, the successful programs that I've heard of are constantly, as of late, programs that have strong partnerships with community-based organizations. And so I think too, another priority over the next year is to strengthen, develop relationships between the city and locally based organizations, and develop different project ideas for which you could partner with them on. That includes tribal entities as well too. So I think that both of those efforts could be some really great kind of initial first steps to take to start shaping what some potential project areas could look like.
And as far as the EQC support, commissioners helped quite a bit with the CAL FIRE grant proposal, which we were ultimately not awarded, but put forth like a framework that made it really easy for staff to, work together and, refine and apply. So I was kind of thinking a subcommittee could be in the future around grant writing, or just even grant advising. And that all helps kind of tell the story of community engagement and community involvement too. So maybe as we think about the work plan, like having a subcommittee focus there. Another opportunity is, we could, as we continue tracking this and like actually have tangible like grant solicitations, we could come back and kind of workshop them in the meeting space as well. If a subcommittee there's not capacity for that.
As I think about the different categories, it makes me wonder if there are potentially multiple subcommittees. Like with the one about like wildfire and like maybe urban forest, maybe someone goes off and thinks about that versus a different group that might think about, flooding from the bay and maybe they're aligned to some of the subcommittees we've had in the past with people who've been able to build up expertise and some relationships with community groups over time.
Commissioner Yopar?
So I did a first pass. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind here for me was Bellhaven. Makes that like a great fit for multiple of these things. So I did a mental pass through the for just flood ideas. So under water resilience, there's the flood risk and the storm water management. I mean, that's an obvious one because we have the sea rise and then there's all the subwater impact on the clean water. I mean, that Bellhaven is impacted that directly. Under extreme heat, so water resilience is 3.8 billion. Extreme heat mitigation is 450 million. Cooling centers and microgrids. I mean, we're already doing some of that. Park creation and outdoor access, that's 700 million. Urban forest projects, tree cover, I mean, that's Bellhaven. I would love to see something happening with Ivy Road, Ivy and the Caltrain. But I think that has to be grounded on what Bellhaven wants, but that's such a wonderful resource and sub-used, right? Maybe even the Baytrue Ocean Trail project that has been talked over a number of years. And then the coastal the resilience project, that's 1.2 billion. Sea level rise.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, Bellhaven is in the middle of all of this, right?
Yeah, yeah, and when I select the biodiversity protection and nature-based grants, I was thinking about that one. And we could work with even, if we have to, with East Palo Alto and Redwood City, who are our neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Foster City, yeah,
That's maybe where Anna can help us too in facilitating those relationships.
That'd be great. I'm also imagining that the environmental justice element that we've spent so much time on has so many good ideas that we could just, like, yeah, let's use this to fund everything that, everything that's been in the wish list.
I can share an update relative to that.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch it at the priority setting workshop. The implementation of the EJ is shifting from community development into the sustainability
Oh,
team.
right, I did hear.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll have kind of an opportunity to like track the progress and work more closely on the goals within the EJ together.
Great.
Excited.
Anna, you mentioned leveraging funds. Do you have like ideas or examples on how cities can leverage the funds, or can you maybe just talk to more about that?
Yeah, sure. I can give an example actually. So this is, albeit a different funding source, obviously, since this one's not available, not open for granting just yet. But we, similar to you all, were successful in getting a separate MTC EV infrastructure grant, similar to the one Menlo Park got, but we submitted a kind of countywide collaborative grant opportunity that was leveraging as our required match PCE incentives for EV installation. So I think with only like a couple $1,000 exception of in-kind staff time match, like 95% of our match for that grant program came from PCE. So that was super exciting for us because that was a really easy matching source for us to find, right? Actually, PCE kind of came to us and said, hey, we can provide match for this so long as you're installing publicly available level 2 chargers for the community. So I mean, that's just one example. Of course, if you've got your own general funds to show up as match, any kind of local dollars, although I do think thinking creatively and outside the box through like, incentives from a CCA or other dollars from other funding sources, grant opportunities, if you've got a local partner that you've got too, they might have different funding streams that you can look to intertwine or to mix to bring together some kind of match. And they will, depending on the funding or depending on the grant program, different ones might have different requiring levels of match too. So I anticipate from all of the different funding programs to come out of Prop 4, perhaps some will be no match requirement, some will require a match. It's always better though, even if it's not required, to show some kind of match. It can be anything though, really anything that typically is not dollars coming from that same state agency that's giving out those dollars, they would count and qualify as match from coming from some kind of external entity.
Specific question, but go ahead, you had something else to say?
I had one other thought, which was another creative way I've seen match come in is, I apologize, I'm not familiar with exactly the layout in Menlo Park, but for example, if you had some kind of like tax measure for your parks agency, park and open space district or something like that, I have also seen match come in the form of dollars from either the fees that are coming in from some kind of measure that an agency already has passed, or from some kind of like fee-based dollars that they have as income. Like if you have a parks pass, those dollars could be used towards as well and count as an external funding source.
It could be like, if we ended up not, continuing the fee waiver program for electrification. That money could be, like, if we charged fees again for permits. I don't know if we can do
Yeah,
that, but that could be
totally.
Potentially.
You may not know the answer to this one, but I think there's funds in here for parks and, do you know, like, two questions. One, could the money be used to, for example, convert a artificial turf field in a disadvantaged community to a natural grass field? And then secondly, are there any sort of restrictions on using that money to put in plastic grass fields? You know anything about that, or who would we go to for those answers?
I am not the person to go to for those answers, unfortunately. I in a previous life, I used to work for the county of Sonoma, and this was a very hot topic in Sonoma County for a long time on which is better, plastic or real turf. And I know it's controversial, and I don't know. I think that level of detail is going to depend on once the grant programs themselves get a little bit more defined.
Yeah, I figured. I just wanted to plant the seed.
Plant the artificial turf seed.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions from the commissioners?
I have one more.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do we still have a person consulting with the city to help us with grant applications?
We do. Yeah.
They're
And California
suddenly
Consulting.
finding themselves with time on their hands.
Yes, yeah, they helped us with the MTC
Okay,
application. Yeah.
That's good.
They're not on like a monthly retainer anymore. We pay them per grant application.
What I'm imagining with this is there's a lot of organizing and coalition building
Yeah.
that we will need to do in advance of actually getting that paperwork together.
Yeah, and I did in advance of this meeting have California Consulting send me like a brief of all the available grants for like our type of work, and there's nothing out there that really matches like our EJ or climate action right now. It's grants that we've either taken advantage of for EV charging already, or things that are more related to like emergency management.
So this is really the next
This is
big
it, yeah.
opportunity. Okay. Great.
Anna, I guess, I'm wondering if it's expected that all the money will be, given out.
Yes, I mean they're expecting to spend the 10 million. I believe it's in, gosh, I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but I think it's through the end of 2040. They're expecting all $10 billion to be spent. But that includes, like I said, the grants and the direct allocations. So not all $10 billion will be available for people to go after from grants. A subset of that will be. But it does also to look, again, if you were to look at the slide with the multi-year spending plan, they're trying to front load as much spending as possible in the earlier years.
Great. Well, thank you so much again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, thank you all.
Thank you.
Right. We will move on to agenda item E, reports and announcements. We can now hear reports and announcements from staff and commissioners. Staff like to go first?
Sure, I have a few. A member of the public here mentioned the April 26th Love Our Earth Festival. I think you all are aware and have participated in the planning in some level. But we're really excited. We have just over 200 registered and a lot more promotion going out this week. So thank you all for your support on that event. I'm looking forward to some fun in the sun. On April 29th, the city council will be considering two appointments to the Environmental Quality Commission, one for the seat that Commissioner Hill is vacating. It was
Not
an
vacating.
incumbent too, yeah, and then the other one is for the seat that our vice chair is vacating, so I guess I stole your thunder on making that announcement here.
Yeah, I guess it's the right time.
Yeah.
So I'm stepping down from EQC for, at least for now. It's a combination of family commitments that are getting a bit more complicated in the last year and in the next few years. And there's a huge, great pool of candidates coming in. So, I mean, I looked at the people who applied for the last one. So it sounded like the right thing to do. I have other interest also. But let's stay connected. I'm probably going to start calling in as a member of the public. I asked whether we can call in video. It's going to give me an opportunity to spend more time on covering legislature items on energy and also the Peninsula Clean Energy. I'm going to spend more time on that. But mostly it's getting a bit complicated. I mean, this year I've already traveled twice. I'm going to travel again. And I will stay in touch.
Good.
One benefit of this, of being out, is I don't have to worry about the Brown Act, so I can mail to all of you guys.
We'll miss you and appreciate your time on the commission. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoy all of you.
I know, I really appreciate the international perspective that you bring, new ideas from other parts of the world, so keep them coming.
I would.
And definitely keep that flow of all the insight at what's happening at a legislative level. It's so valuable. Thank you for that. Yeah.
And I will cover PC much more aggressively. There's a lot of stuff, interesting stuff happening.
You all can follow Eduardo's Substack. What is the name of it?
Oh, it's just Pellegrino.substack.
Okay.
I made it.
Musings from California.
I
Isn't
made
that what
it,
it's
yeah,
called?
right.
Yeah.
Go.
And then that one last thing, on May 8th, we're gonna be hosting a workshop at the Bellhaven Community Campus to talk about the building code amendments. And talk about some different options for the community. And Ori's planning that one. And he's out of office right now, but we'll start promoting it when he's back next week. So that'll be an evening workshop. I think we're looking at 7 to 8 PM and we'll have interpretation available. And we'll be recording it and posting that online as well.
Great.
Any other announcements from commissioners?
Yeah, the San Francisco Climate Week is happening next week, 450 events. One of them is organized by my nonprofit, Cloud Sustainability Watch. It's on sustainable computing and it's on Thursday at 2 PM. But there are lots of other good ones. Not enough that are on sustainable computing, but nevertheless, lots of great topics. Energy is a big topic up there. And the events are sort of all over the Bay Area. So it's really high energy time.
Anyone else?
Just building up on the PC activities. So PC has started rolling out their DR strategy. I know that you listened to that, you heard that presentation on at the CAC on. I think.
I was not there.
Oh, you were not there? Okay, I couldn't see. So that was a good presentation. They also presented at the executive committee. And then they're going to go to the board of directors. There is a big push on BPP, on virtual power plants, and both DRs behind the meter, solar and resident, and in front of the meter. This will take multiple years to come to fruition, but it's very exciting. It's a big push. And I'm planning to cover it pretty aggressively. And then they are about to disclose what BPP software they're going to use. And that's the first real stake in the ground. Is like, okay, we're going to use whatever. And that has a bunch of implications. So it's very exciting. It's part of their strategic direction for revenue. But they're planning on actually making money out of this. Follow my stack, you'll get all the insight. That's it.
Okay, I'll just make one announcement. There's an event on May 10th. It's called Healthy Homes, Replacing Fossil Fuel Gases. It's a free event in San Mateo, the Congregational Church of San Mateo on 225 Tilton Avenue. And they'll talk about the air quality in our homes. It's the presentation by environmental scientist, Professor Rob Jackson from Stanford. He wrote a book called Into the Clear Blue Sky about reducing GHG emissions and measuring air quality. And there's opportunities to learn from Peninsula Clean Energy about how you can make your home greener and healthier. And also hear from local homeowners who have shared their journeys to fully electrify their homes. So again, that's a free event in San Mateo on May 10th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I can share the flyer with you. I think I have.
I have it, yeah, I
Yeah.
can send it to the group.
Okay.
And hopefully it gets on our city channels as well.
Great.
Thank you.
I have kind of a question that might be like a request for future agenda items. Is this a time to do that?
You could bring up as part of your update.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm wondering, should we plan to agendaize creation of a subcommittee next month, once we know what our who's on our commission going forward to support the grants?
I think next month we will be starting to talk about the work plan subcommittee,
Okay,
so that we can include that subcommittee in the work plan, I think. Because of,
so we can just generally have a convo about what subcommittees we need.
yes,
and-
yeah,
Okay,
we can
great.
agendize that.
And then there have been a couple of comments that have come in via email to many of us about trees and safety in the
Mhm.
community. And I don't know if we want to talk about that when we get our next arborist update, or if we want to bring that forward in another way. And I'm kind of looking to you because I know you responded.
The next Arbor's updates at the June meeting.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, it's coming up.
I think that some residents talked about that yesterday at the city council meeting. I was there. And they were talking about like tree safety. Yeah, when I was there, so.
Was it related to the ADUs?
So that one I wasn't sure because I just realized, oh, there's this tree and they were talking about construction.
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe that's a request for Jillian maybe to bring to us in June. I don't know if it's more urgent for us to address it sooner, or if it is going through Jillian and or city council or the planning commission, but I just wanted to make sure we were addressing it if it's something that
Mhm.
makes sense for us to.
I'll talk to Jillian.
So heads up that I'm planning to continue to be engaged, and I don't know whether it's good or bad, but now I'm going to just be a member of the public, and I'm going to be asking now and then, is like, how can I participate? How can members of the public participate in this thing? But from being able to actually call in and see who else is around to, can I help? Can we help here and that? I
Yeah,
mean, in particular with this thing with the trees. I have redwoods next to it. next-
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I know one of your
I'm
questions.
sure that many people would have to say, will want to provide feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, we're great at many things, but normally we only have. Right.
And I'll work on getting clarity from city
Yeah.
clerk on how the
Okay.
public can be involved with the subcommittees. Okay.
Move on to item F, informational items. This informational items are transmitted to the EQC and staff's efforts to provide updates. Informational items are not action items. However, city council staff or members of the public may ask questions or make comment. Are there any questions or comments from EQC on informational item F1? Our Environmental Quality Commission work plan for 24-25?
I have a question.
Okay,
Let me just find it. There was something that was due last month.
Oh,
I
the
forget which one it was.
adaptation.
Yeah, something like that. I remember jumping on that one and said, "Oh, okay, well, this is out of date."
yeah, if it's in regards to the resiliency and adaptation ad hoc subcommittee, Ms. Launder could speak to that.
Yeah, yeah, so that was my error in not getting back to the subcommittee. But essentially we'll need more time because
Yeah.
Originally we were tracking a grant that was due in March from Caltrans to develop an adaptation plan. And instead we've decided to work with East Palo Alto, Redwood City, and San Carlos through One Shoreline. And so One Shoreline is going to be preparing the grant application, and they're looking at a summer grant deadline. It's a rolling grant. All that to say is because we kind of paused for this collaboration, yeah, there's some delays.
I just meant that
Yeah.
it might need to be updated.
Yeah.
I will update it. And so next meeting, when we do the big subcommittee cleanup item, we can address that.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Ms. Launder, do you have any public comment on this item?
Sure, let me open up public comment. If you are in the room and you'd like to make public comment on item F, informational items, you can give me a card and we can hear your comment. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button or *9 and we can unmute you. There's no cards in the room and no hands online. So we can close public comment.
All right. It's a wrap. This meeting is adjourned.
Yay,
John.
adjourned.